All right, all right. Happy Tuesday, everyone. Yes, in the chat, if you guys can hear me okay. Hi, Millie. How you doing? I see you already have your comment in there. Good evening. Yes, in the chat, if you guys can hear me okay. And I'm also using a new audio device tonight, so I want to make sure you guys can hear me clearly. I've kind of upgraded my audio, so it should be loud and clear. Yes, awesome. Yay! All right, great. So, you guys know today we are just talking about investing in mortgage notes because I know for some of you who are already in Generals Equipped, once you are done setting up all of your systems in place to build wealth, you will be able to graduate to one of the passive income options, which mortgage notes is going to be one of those. So that definitely gives you guys an opportunity to ask any questions that you would like pertaining to that. All right, so you guys can go ahead the same way we do with the other live streams and put your questions in the chat, and then I'll put them up on the screen and answer them. First of all, do you guys know what mortgage notes are? Everybody here should, right? Because I know I probably have talked about them before. Hi, Liz. Hi, Miss Portia. So, yes, in the chat, if you know what mortgage notes are. Do you know what mortgage notes are? Just let me see the crowd that I'm dealing with today. If y'all are in Generals Equip, you should kind of at least know what it is, what they are. Yes, who can tell me what? First of all, who can tell me? She Anderson said I was just going to ask that. All right, so first, if okay, we have someone in the chat who was literally going to ask what mortgage notes are. Okay, so we need to start with the foundation first. Okay, who can tell me what mortgage notes are? Simply put, I mean, it's kind of like when you have a car note, right? You have a loan on that car and you're paying a note. So the mortgage note is the same thing. It is the loan, right? That you're paying when the mortgage, basically the loan or whomever company, if it's usually it's the bank that people will have the mortgage with that they're paying, a mortgage on for their home. But you guys can actually be the note owner, which means that they're paying you that mortgage instead of paying the bank it. Okay, so a mortgage note is basically the loan. Okay, so you're investing in paper. That's why I think it's one of the best investments in just in real estate, period, because you're not dealing with any of the liability that comes with the asset. Um, you're really just getting paid like the bank, you're getting paid the mortgage. All right. So the first question that we have, and I think that's probably usually the easiest way for people to understand it if you have no idea what it is: car note, mortgage note. One is for the car, one's for the mortgage. Okay. It's kind of like the same thing. Um, all right. So Miss Portia says, do you need money to start mortgage notes? And do you use other people's money to start? You need money pretty much to start anything. Well, not necessarily, but for this, yes. Because you have two options essentially, two types of notes essentially that you'll be investing in. Okay, you have what's called the performing note, which means there's actually someone in the home currently paying the mortgage, and the mortgage is current. And then you have what's called a non performing note, which just means that the mortgage is not current, the mortgage is behind. They've stopped paying the mortgage, which means the note is not performing, right? You're not getting any monthly payments. Um, so whichever one you invest in, you'll still need money to start. Now, could you, bring in some money partners if you know what you're doing? Absolutely. Absolutely, you can do that. But keep in mind, you're actually purchasing that note from the bank or whoever currently has it. Okay, so say for example, um, you have the performing notes. A lot of people like to invest in the performing note because there's already someone in the home and they're already paying the mortgage. So essentially, they're just kind of buying the note from whoever has it now, transferring it over, transferring maybe servicers. And then you have that income coming in right away because the note is current. And then you have the non-performing notes where it's like, well, they're not paying the mortgage. And some people may be like, well, why would anyone want to invest in a note that they're not paying on? Because the upside, the benefit of investing in the non-performing notes is even better, right? Because think about it. So let's say the person who has been paying on that note, let's say they've been in their home for 15 years, but they have a 30-year mortgage, right? 15 years in, let's say something happens, they get laid off, and now they can't afford to pay the mortgage. And now this note is 3, 4 months behind. They're behind on the mortgage. Okay. So in this case, there's a couple of options here. So, first of all, you will be able to get that note for a lot cheaper from the bank. Why? Because the person's already been paying on it for 15 years. So the bank has already made a majority of the money from the note anyway. Okay, so that's one benefit. So let's say when the person bought the home 15 years ago, let's say that home was worth 200,000 when they bought it 15 years ago. They've been paying that mortgage for 15 years, and everybody knows when you look at the amortization schedule on the mortgage, you're paying way more, right, than what the property is actually worth. So the bank has already made a lot of money within those 15 years that that person's been paying on the mortgage. And so let's say on that $200,000 note, let's say they only owe maybe a balance of another 100,000. Okay, so now the bank doesn't mind selling you the note for less than that because again they've already been getting paid for 15 years, and so they don't mind selling that. And then also the bank, a lot of banks have so many notes on their books that they're wanting to get rid of them because the bank doesn't have a system in place to help people with the notes. All they're going to do is really just foreclose on the property. So if you can come in as an investor and be like, well, let me take this note off your hands, they're looking for that, right? You're taking the note off the hands of the bank. They're willing to sell it to you for cheaper because they've already been getting paid for all of those years. But not only that, even though they've been paid on this mortgage for 15 years, now as a note investor, if you were to purchase this note from the bank, let's say for 75,000, it's 15 years later since they bought this home. The home is probably now worth 300,000. Okay, so you now have a couple of options once you get this note that's non-performing. Option one is you could be a lifesaver to the person who's getting ready to lose their home. Now that you've taken the note off of the hands of the bank and you're the new owner of that note, you don't have to foreclose on it, right? Typically, the bank would just foreclose. But you, as a note investor, you can actually be a lifesaver to this person and give them the opportunity to stay in their home. So if you look at the note and you can see, okay, well, Mr. Jones has been paying his mortgage faithfully, right, for the past 15 years. Obviously, he just lost his job. We just need to give him some time to get back on his feet. In that situation, you would do what's called a loan mod, basically a modification to the loan, where there's multiple different ways that you can help him get back on his feet and keep him from losing the home. So you could move, let's say if he's 3 payments behind, you could say, okay, well, let's move these 3 payments to the end of your mortgage and just restructure everything just to help you get back on your feet because now you have a job again, you're working again. We see that you have actually been, you know, good as far as reliable when it comes to paying for the past 15 years. So we're not just going to foreclose on you and kick you out. We're going to give you this opportunity to get back on your feet. So that's one benefit of being a mortgage note investor. You can kind of be like a lifesaver to someone and keep them from losing their home. However, if you get that note from the bank and the person in the home that is, let's say they're 4 months behind on the note, but they're not really trying, right? And you can kind of see there's been inconsistencies in the payments. They haven't really been, um, reliable when it comes to paying that note. That's someone that you'll probably just foreclose on, right? Because there's no guarantee that if you were to even go through doing a full loan modification, if it would even help them or not. So then you can come in. Second option is to foreclose. You can foreclose on them, get them out of the home, and then now create a whole new note. But now don't forget the property is worth a lot more, right? Because this property that was bought 15 years ago now is worth almost 300,000. So the new note that you're getting on it would be a lot higher. Okay, so that's one of the benefits also of investing in um, non-performing notes. Now, clearly, this process will take a little bit longer because you're having to foreclose on the property. But the upside is great, right? Once you get a new payer in there and get the note performing again. Um, Another option is you could do a deed in lieu. So basically, let's say you don't want to go through the whole process of foreclosing and all that, but you want to get them out of the house. Okay. So you can literally offer them some money and say, hey, I'll pay you, I don't know, $5,000 to just sign over the deed to me, who is the new note owner. Number one, that benefits them because it gets them out of, getting that basically them a foreclosure being on their credit report, right? Because you're not taking it all the way to foreclosure. So it gives them the opportunity to get out of the property and without having that foreclosure on their record. And by just signing the property over to you. So that would be called a deed in lieu, where you basically can offer them money and be like, hey, we'll give you $5,000 just to sign the deed over. And then you don't have to worry about going through a foreclosure and all that. And most people will take that and just take that money, use it to move on and go on to the next place. And then that saves you all the time of having to go through a foreclosure by having the property signed over directly to you from the current note holder. Okay, so just multiple different options. You can also just buy the note and resell it to another note investor, right? Kind of almost like wholesale it too. So there's a lot of different ways to make money with note investing. But essentially, yes, you will definitely need money to purchase the note from the bank or wherever you're getting that note from. And yes, absolutely, you can use other people's money to start, but it's not as simple as you think. Um, all right, next question is from Liz. And she says, do you need a realtor license or any special credentials to invest in mortgage notes? Actually, no, you do not need a realtor's license to invest in mortgage notes. And actually, I forgot to do the little disclaimer thing at the end. So let me just go ahead and pop it up right now so you guys can see it. All right, so it says this content is for educational and informational purposes only and does not constitute as financial, legal, or investment advice. I am not a CPA or an attorney. I am a business consultant that specializes in passive income strategies. If you're interested in actually investing, consult your um, financial professional, that you work with. If you have your own CPA or lawyer and all of that. So just wanted to put that out there. All right. So now let's get back to the questions. All right. So Liz says, nope, you absolutely don't need a real estate license to do this. And I think that's another misconception that people have. And there aren't any special credentials that you need to invest in mortgage notes. Absolutely not. But great question, though. All right. Yep. Hi, Kitana. Hey, Latasha. All right. For those of you who are just joining, we are talking about investing in mortgage notes. And so put your questions in the chat, and then we will put your question up on the screen. And based on everything I just said so far, does anybody have any questions when I explained the different ways that you can invest in mortgage notes? Yes, I see, Celeste. And so far, the questions has been, do you need a real estate license to invest in mortgage notes? Absolutely not. Yes, but place the questions in the chat so I can be able to pull it up on the screen. Okay, so if you are someone that has, I don't know, maybe just some money sitting in your 401k or your IRA, and you're like, well, I would love it if I could make 15 to 20% on this money that's just sitting here. Mortgage notes may be a great investment for you, and a good passive income opportunity for you. And there is an opportunity to actually JV with me on some deals. If you're interested, though, you're gonna have to like pass the qualifications. You have to go to patiencedeanfinance.com and click invest in mortgage notes, and then you can apply to see if you fit the criteria if you're interested in investing in the mortgage notes. Um, but yeah, so I'm looking in the chat. Let's see what other questions we have in here. All right, Katina says, are there ups and downsides similar to stocks and bonds? I'm so glad you asked that because I feel like mortgage note investing is, I would say, hey, this is just my opinion, would be one of the safest, I think, passive income investments out there because there's so many exit strategies. Right now, can you lose money on a deal? You can if you're trying really hard. You can, but at the end of the day, if you're looking at your numbers correctly and you can read right and follow instructions, and you're working with someone who's invested in notes before, you should be fine. um, is it going to be something that you just do overnight and get rich with a whole bunch of mortgage notes? Absolutely not, right? Because again, it depends on if you're investing in. Now, can you build your portfolio very quickly with mortgage notes? Absolutely, you can. But it also depends on if you are investing in performing notes versus non-performing notes. If you're investing in non-performing notes and you do have to go through the foreclosure process, okay, you're sitting at around what, 6 months to a year to get that note performing again, right? So you have to have patience, but you also have to understand that once you get that note performing again, this is years of somebody paying you every month, right? Think about when you're paying a mortgage to a bank for 30 years. That's 30 years that that bank is getting paid without having to do anything else. Okay? So the upside is worth um the process. But I do want you guys to understand that it's not an overnight process. You're not going to just buy a note and then tomorrow you're getting passive income. There's a process. Now, of course, you can get the note performing again faster if you do a deed in lieu, where you just get them to sign the property over instead of having to go through a foreclosure. But again, still a process, right? But as far as ups and downs, it's not similar to the stock market because the notes are backed by a real asset. Okay, that's the main difference. When you're getting when there's a loan on a house, the house is a real tangible asset. So you have something backing that loan. You see what I'm saying? The promissory note is backed by the real asset. So if anything happens, you have the real asset. And I think that's the thing that I think makes it different, from the volatility that you would see with stocks and bonds. Okay, does that make sense? Yeah. Yep. And the great thing with the notes too is that you can, I don't even really want to say this like this, but I think sometimes people don't realize that some of the banks don't necessarily want you to pay off your mortgage. Because guess what? If you don't pay it off and now the property's worth with way more, they'll just foreclose on it and put a new person in there. And then now they're collecting a whole new note for a whole nother 30 years. Do y'all see how they make more money when you actually don't pay? When you actually, I know it's bad. But this is also the reason why we need more mortgage note investors, right? So you can be that lifesaver for someone who may have gone into foreclosure. Okay. Because that's another question that I get a lot of times when people are like, well, don't you feel bad foreclosing on people and kicking them out of their home? Not necessarily, because we're not foreclosing on people who have been faithful with their payments. Usually, if somebody's in that position where they're 3 4 months behind on their mortgage, they're looking at the bank doesn't give them an option, they're just foreclosed. But when you come in as that note investor, you actually can give them options, right? But you want to also be a wise investor and only give those options to the people who is worth giving it to. You see what I'm saying? Don't come in there and, try to be Captain Save Up. You know what I mean? And you see that the person has been inconsistent for years with their payments, but you're still like, oh, well, we're still going to try to work with you and do a loan modification, because now you're just being a dumb investor, because you're going to be left holding the bag and be months in the hole of them not paying, right? So someone like that, you want to offer them a deed in lieu, give them some money to sign, the property over to you. And if they won't do that, then foreclose on them. So you have to make those decisions, right? But you still at least have the opportunity to help the people who can be helped and who want to be helped. Um, but great question though, Katina. Liz says, I just about to ask, what is the ROI? It depends on the property. Every property is different. Every property is different, but I did, mention some of the numbers that we have seen in the past. Liz says, where do you go to get this list? Well, obviously, if most of the people right now, for those of you who have mortgages, who are you paying your mortgages to? It's probably a bank, right? Probably a bank. So where would you go to get the list? From the bank. Um, but the thing with that is, though, the banks have so many notes on their books that they're not really trying to be like selling one or two notes here and there to an investor. But if you're like a hedge fund and you can just, come and buy up 100, 200 notes, you're the one that the bank's looking for, because they're like, okay, we're doing this one time. It doesn't take up as much time. They don't have time to be there with just somebody that's trying to buy one note or two notes. Okay, so that will also be the benefit of JVing with me on the notes, is because we have millions of dollars in inventory that comes in every single month, millions of dollars of notes, because we are actually able to get that information from the banks because of how many notes are being bought. Um, but that's a really good question though. But you would essentially get the list from the bank. Okay. And of course, there's other people that have websites and things where you can get it from, but it's usually best to get it directly from the banks, because it's not going to be like all marked up. It'll actually be, what the balances are, that's on the notes. Celeste says, can you place a mortgage note in a trust? Great question. Um, You can, but what I would recommend is having an account that's kind of like a self-directed IRA or solo 401k. So once you open up this SDIRA account, which is a self-directed IRA, then you can use that to hold your notes. And then what you can do is have your trust be the owner of that self-directed IRA. Okay, so that's how I would structure that. Especially for those of you who are in Generals Equipped who have your trust, I would use your business trust to open up the self-directed IRA, and then use that self-directed IRA to buy your notes and to hold your notes. Okay, and you can use a self-directed IRA or solo 401k, but I think the SDIRA, we already have a company that we can recommend for that, if you're interested in investing. But great question though. Same question that Liz asked earlier. Yep, how do you find the notes to flip? And that's the thing. A lot of people out there that talk about notes don't actually have inventory. It's like, yeah, they could teach you stuff, but if you don't have the inventory, what's the point, right? But again, you're going to go to the banks to get that. But like I said, we already have, access to millions and millions of dollars of notes every month. Um, so yeah, and that just kind of goes with having whatever relationship with the bank that's necessary for them to actually give you access to those, because they're not, like I said, the banks, they're not going to spend a lot of time working like one-on-one, with trying to sell one note at a time. Like they don't have time for that, but you still can get access to those lists. um, Liz says, can you invest in out of state your residence? Absolutely. I'm glad you asked this question too, because that's one of the amazing things about investing in paper. Okay. Okay. That's the, because think about it. You're not um you're not the homeowner. The homeowner is paying you the mortgage. So when you go to sign the paperwork, to get a mortgage, do you care what state the bank is in? Does it matter what state the bank is in? It doesn't matter. You still got to pay that bank every month. Okay. So doesn't matter where the house is. Your bank could be in a whole nother wherever. You still have to pay that bank. So that's the great thing with being a mortgage loan investor. You're the bank now that they're paying their mortgage to. You do not have to be in the state that they're in. You don't have to be in the state that they're in. Now, if you are going through, let's say, in the process of buying your notes, um, there's a lot that goes into it. So, but let's say you need to do a foreclosure. Now, obviously, you will need, a licensed attorney in that state to do foreclosures, to do the foreclosure and all of that. But that's also, again, one of the benefits of JVing with me on this, because we already have um, not just the access to inventory, but also the professionals all over the country that can work with you depending on whatever state you're buying in. So, no, you do not have to invest in mortgage notes in your state, because all you're buying is paper. You're just buying the mortgage. That's all it is. Um, Again, and y'all know me, I'm all about passive income, right? I like to be able to be living in a whole other country and still have money coming in. Because I think, it's one thing to have financial freedom. It's one thing to have time freedom to like get your time back because you have passive income coming in. But location freedom is another thing that I feel like is really important too. Like if the Lord tells you, hey, I want you to get up, I don't know, and go feed people in, I don't know, Uganda or something, and go launch a nonprofit there. Like you need to have that location freedom too. And that's why this type of investment, because you're just buying the paper, you're not tied down to the physical location of where the property is. But that's a really good question, Liz. So yes, you can invest in your state if you want to, or out of your state if you don't want to. Now, of course, there are some states that are better to invest in than others, just because their foreclosure process may be different than another one. Some states may require you, just require a little bit more than others. So it just, yeah. But again, we'll tell you, which states. But I mean, I think it is good to start out in your state, maybe for your first note or two, and then go out. But yeah, you don't have to invest in just your state. Liz says, is there an age requirement to be a mortgage note investor? As I'm thinking ahead for my children. Great question. Because and mortgage notes are also, I think, one of the fastest way to grow your net worth. Okay, for those of you who are leaving an inheritance to your children's children, right? And wanting to build wealth within your family trust, right? So you can be able to pass down um, notes. That's a great investment to pass down, because if you have, let's say, 20 years on a note where somebody's paying that no mortgage for 20 years, that's a great, that's just a great investment that you can pass down, especially if you have a portfolio of notes, that constantly have those payments coming in. And of course, like I said, if you have your self-directed IRA that's owned by your trust, and your children are the beneficiary of that trust, they can be able to see the benefits of having that passive income coming in from investing in the notes. But if your child wanted to purchase a note, um, they would have to be, at least 18, right, at an adult age, if they were actually purchasing the note themselves. Um, that's different from just benefiting from the payments by being a beneficiary, on an account. Okay, hopefully that makes sense. Celeste says, so how do we reach out to you about this opportunity? So if you just go to patiencedeanfinance.com, you'll see the button that says invest in mortgage notes, and you can apply if you're interested. So it was going to ask you all the questions to see if you'll be a good fit for this or not. So answer the questions well. That's all I'm going to say. But yeah, so you can just go in there, click apply, and then it'll ask you all the questions. And based on how you answer those questions, that would determine, whether you'd be a good fit to be a JV partner, on a note or not. Um, but great question. It's right here on the screen, patiencedeanfinance.com. All right, next question is from Kitana. She says, are mortgage notes the same as buying homes that are behind on property taxes, or is that a different passive income strategy? So that sounds more like tax lien investing. So no, because when you're buying the note, Kitana, you're not buying the home. Okay, you're buying the loan. Okay, you're buying the loan. Um, which means you're buying the mortgage essentially. So, because remember, so let's say right now, if let's say Bank of America is the one that you're paying your mortgage to, right? Bank of America is not the homeowner. Essentially, you are the homeowner, right? You're the one that's on paper as the homeowner. You're the one that has the liability. You're the one that has to pay the property taxes. Bank of America didn't have to pay that, but you still have to pay Bank of America that mortgage every month, though. Okay. So, as a note investor, you become the bank. They're paying you the mortgage. You're not buying the home. The homeowner still retains all of the liability of the home, including the property taxes and all that. That's another aspect that I love about it. Okay. Because you're just getting paid like the bank. Okay. They're paying that note to you. Just like you have a car note and you're paying them the note, it's a mortgage note. So, as a mortgage note investor, you're not buying the home, you're buying the loan on the home. That's what you're purchasing so you can get those monthly payments. Just like the bank gets paid for 30 years, if it's a 30-year mortgage, you're getting those payments. It's passive income, guys. Okay, the homeowner still retains all of the liability of the home and paying the property taxes and all that. That's not on you. You just get the mortgage payment every month. Okay, do y'all see how this is so cool? All right, so Miss Portia says, to better understand having several properties in the field of mortgage note investing, we would be making passive monthly income from each home directly, from each loan, essentially. Yes. You'll be making passive income from each loan. So if you bought the loan from the bank, and let's say there's still 20 years of payments left on that loan, now as the new mortgage note holder, they're paying you for 20 years that mortgage every month. Okay. So you're investing in the loan. It's basically investing in debt. Okay. You're becoming the lender and not the borrower. That's how you get on the other side of that, where they're paying you the interest. Okay. Yes. Prophetess Felicia says, so this is a partnership. What's the JV partner? Um, JV just means joint venture. So when you go to patiencedeanfinance.com, it clearly like details, like what you would be doing as a JV partner and what we would be doing as a JV partner. And it breaks it down. Hmm. So yeah, so I'm giving you guys the opportunity to be a JV partner, for especially for those of you who just want to kind of get your feet wet in it, because there's some people are just kind of like, well, I don't know, I have $50,000 in my 401k, and I want to make 15 to 20% on it, and I just want to give y'all the money and have y'all pick out the note and everything. I just want the passive income. Okay, there's some people that are just like, well, I just want to be hands off and just get the passive income. But then there's other people who may be like, well, I actually want to learn note investing, and they might want to be a little bit more hands on. So, we will determine that when you apply. Great question. Jayla says, do you have to have good credit to do this? I mean, good credit always comes in handy, but cash is always king too. So if you're going to be if you're going to be investing in notes with money that you have to borrow, then yes, of course, you'd want to get the best interest rate if you're using a, debt. But y'all know me, I'm big on doing stuff debt free and just using cash. But of course, if you don't have that type of cash, but a lot of people do though, because a lot of people just have money from sitting in a 401k or or IRA or something from a job that they just never did anything with. That's just sitting there that could be making the money, right? Like they could buy one or two notes with those and have monthly payments coming in on those notes, and they can really grow that money much faster. So people do be having money. Just y'all be thinking people are broke, and no, you just don't know. But at the same time, if you don't have that money just sitting there in retirement or anything, then and you need to use a loan to invest, then yes, you would need good credit so that you can get good terms on the loan. Um, but yeah, but of course, there's other ways too, because remember, you guys are growing your nonprofits and your businesses using grant funding. So that's a whole nother caveat, because you could have a plan to where the money that you're making from your business, right? The income that you're making from your business and your nonprofit, remember the income that you're chucking into your IUL policy, you could put that into your IUL policy, pull the money back out from the death benefit of the IUL policy, and then use that to buy your mortgage note. Okay. So again, with the strategies that we're using in Generals Equipped, where you guys are building your nonprofit and your businesses with grant funding, the income that you're making from that, you can use to invest in notes. Okay. Increase your net worth much faster instead of just having that money just coming in doing nothing for you. The extra money that you're making from your business and your nonprofit, you can start buying notes. So now you're building up a portfolio of just mortgage payments coming to you every month. So yeah, and if you, of course, if you use your IUL policy to do that, then you could be putting that profit that you're making from your business and your nonprofit both into your IUL policy, pulling it back out of the death benefit out of it, using that to buy your notes, and then taking some of the profits from your notes and putting that into your endowment fund, right? So that you can build something that's going to be sustainable for life. So yeah, so just to kind of combine the strategies that we use in Generals Equipped with investing in mortgage notes. This is the reason why mortgage notes is one of the passive income investment strategies that we offer along with that program, because it's a fast way to grow your net worth and to build your passive income as well. But great question though, Jayla. Millie says, "Can you sell your land? Hmm? And what is the best way to sell?" I don't think this has anything to do with mortgage notes, but absolutely you can sell your land. But are you talking about selling your land to invest in mortgage notes, or what is the correlation between that and the mortgage notes? Give me that, and then you can re-put that question in here. Liz says some states have non-resident tax um, as a note investor. Is this relevant in deciding what states to invest in? Mm, not necessarily. Not necessarily. Not if you're, maybe if you're doing a foreclosure or in the process of purchasing the note, it could be. But if it's already a performing note and you're just essentially transferring servicers and, the owner of it, that typically is not an issue. But that one I actually may need to look a little bit deeper in, because I think it could, depending on the state. But for the most part, no. Um, because remember, you're not becoming the homeowner, you're buying the loan, you're getting the debt. Um, Miss Portia says we make interest because we purchased a loan at a discount, right? Yes. So essentially, yes, you're getting so, because remember when you look at the typical amortization schedule on just a regular mortgage, right? When a person gets a 30-year mortgage from the bank, and let's say that loan is for 200,000, you already know they're paid at least three times that, right? When you look at the amortization schedule, they're paid at least three times that by the time they finish paying for the whole 30 years. Okay, so yeah, there's a lot of interest um, in there. So yes, you would be essentially becoming that new debt holder or owner, and having the notes paid to you. So yes, you would be basically making money like the bank. Yep. So essentially, yes, would be the answer to your question. Miss Portia says, do we need an LLC to start? No, not necessarily. Like I said, I recommend having a self-directed IRA to start, and using your IRA to purchase the notes. And if you are in generals equipped and you have a trust, you can open up the IRA with your trust. Or actually, you could just have the IRA and then make your trust, the owner and beneficiary of the IRA. But that you can do that later. But just start first with a self-directed IRA, and it's not just a regular IRA. Let me clarify that. Don't just be like, oh well, I have an IRA or a 401k, so I'm good. No, a self-directed IRA or a solo 401k. Okay, those are specifically designed for investing in things like this. You can't just use your regular IRA that you have with your job or 401k that you have with your job. That is not going to work. Okay, it's a completely different um, type of entity. So I just wanted to clarify that. But I recommend using a self directed IRA, and not an LLC. Now, if you have, could your LLC, be the owner and beneficiary of your self-directed IRA? You could do that, but don't hold the notes directly in an LLC. Do it in the SDIRA. Okay. All right. Millie says, if you are paying mortgage on a home and you would sell your land to invest. Oh, okay. So wait, sell extra? Do you have like extra land or extra property? Is that what you're saying? Like, so you already have your own mortgage on the home that you're in. Um, are you talking about selling extra property that you own? Because essentially, if you still have a mortgage on it, I don't think you could sell it. But but yeah, if you have extra land, that you want to sell to use the money to invest, or I'm sure you could do that, of course. I would talk to whoever your financial advisor is, if you're interested in doing that. Because I mean, I don't know what the condition of your property is, or what's the full ownership um, relationship there with it. So, especially if there's still a mortgage on the property. So, yeah, I would look a little bit deeper into that. But if it's available to sell and it's you own it, it's up to you. However you want to come up with the money to invest, you can do that. If you want to, like I said, if you have money sitting in an IRA or 401k from a previous job, if you're, I don't know, a doctor or a dentist and you just make a lot of money and you want to have your money working for you, you can do that um, as well. If you want to take out a loan to do that, you can do that. Like I said, I always don't really like using debt, but yeah, it's up to you. Jayla says, does being a realtor give you any type of advantage or make you a source for these mortgage notes? Um, Not necessarily. I mean, you may know when a property is going into foreclosure, but as far as sourcing the notes, not necessarily, because again, that's coming from the banks. As far as knowing, but if you're like a foreclosure, like if you're a realtor that specializes in foreclosures, maybe, but it's not necessary. It's really not. And now, do we still need relationships with realtors for any type of real estate investing? Absolutely. You're still going to need some of those, but not necessarily in this case. Liz says, I started watching it a little late. I posted my IUL question after you answered. It's okay. All right, so Dwayne says, if you don't live in the US, in America, can you invest in American notes? Because I don't have an IRA. Ah, well, you should still be able to open up a self-directed IRA. I think you do need to have a social security number though. So you may have to invest with your entity because I do know with you being in Generals Equipped, you do have your business trust and you do have your family trust and you do have your nonprofit trust. So essentially, you could open up an account like that with your, and actually, I'm trying not to go through too deep with like the strategies because you actually could use your IUL too if you wanted. Um, because you remember you're pulling the money from the death benefit and then, but that's you haven't gotten to that point yet because we haven't even opened that up with you yet because you're still at the beginning phases of the program. But yeah, you would have to do yours with your entity. You because essentially you don't have like how do I put it? You have an EIN number with your entity, and so you can use that. Because essentially, if you're your own employer, right? Couldn't you provide your own IRA or your own 401k? You can, but and same with the self-directed IRA. I think you should be able to open it up with your entity, but I'll have to look into that with and see if it's different with the trust or not. That's the main thing that I'll have to double check on for that for you. But you can do it with your entity and just not since you don't have like a social. You would have to use the EIN. That would kind of be your workaround for that. And then Deepika says, what is an IRA and what is the self-directed IRA? Can anyone tell Deepika what an Deepika, are you in the US? Are you in a different country? Maybe y'all have like a different type of entity. But yes, aren't you in like, yeah, you are in the US, right? Because I know like one of you guys are in like India, but you're not in India. Let me see if she answered. Yeah, you are in the US. Okay. All right. So IRA just stands for individual retirement account. Okay. That's all it stands for. Individual retirement account. That's all IRA is. Self-directed IRA is just self because typically people will get an access to an IRA maybe through their jobs. If the job provides retirement benefits, then a lot of times the company will open up the IRA, and then you as an employee can put money into that IRA or 401k or whatever for your retirement. So it's basically like a company sponsored retirement vehicle, basically. But with a self directed IRA, you're not having to go through a company to do it because you're self directing it, which means it also allows you to invest in some alternative types of investments that a typical company sponsored IRA would not be able to invest in, right? Things like mortgage notes or crypto and, just other things, gold and other stuff like that. Alternative investments. Really the main difference between having that self-directed IRA. It gives you more options when it's self-directed versus just your typical IRA account that you would get through a job. Okay, so hopefully that makes sense. Liz says, living in a small community, would it be wise to network with other investors in the area, such as contractors, realtors? They may have insights on the local market. I don't think that's necessary, unless you're going to be like flipping houses, which you're not. And this is the thing. I think a lot of times when people think real estate investing, they're thinking about like those flipping shows, right? Where they're flipping their house. And no, you are buying the loan. Okay. This is a paperwork business. You're not picking up a hammer. Okay. You're not flipping a house. So, no, you don't need to do all of that. This is paperwork. You're buying a loan, you're buying a promissory note, essentially. Okay. That's all you're doing. Because think about it. When you're when you're in the process of buying a home, you as the homeowner, The bank is just the one that you're paying the mortgage to. Okay, they have nothing to do with anything else, the realtors and all that, because at the end of the day, you're buying the loan. You're not buying the house. The house is, you know, is great because you have, a physical asset that's backing that loan. Um, but at the end of the day, I need you guys to really shift out of that mindset of, okay, I need to have, contractors and realtors and all of this and know the local market and all of that. Not necessarily. You're buying debt. Okay. That's what you're buying. So again, you don't have to do this in a small community. You can invest in any state that you want. Ooh, great question. Millie says, how much you need to start investing? Um, I mean, I recommend anywhere between 20,000 to, because you should be able to buy at least one note with that. Um, Something small, a baby note. That's what we'll call them, a baby note. You may be able to start with a baby note with that. So if you have about 25,000, 50,000 sitting in a retirement account, 50,000, you may be able to buy two notes with that. Um, but I would say comfortably around 20,000. I recommend to buy your first like baby note. Okay. But great question though. Liz says also, would it be wise to be a note investor for family or friends who find themselves in these situations? Oh, okay. So you mean like if your friend or family is behind on their mortgage? Are you thinking about buying their note from the bank or something to give them the opportunity to get back on their feet? Um, I don't know, man, because investing and family, there's sometimes they just don't go together. Okay. And I'm just being realistic. Okay. Because you guys know your families better than everybody else. Okay. There are people that are more trustworthy than others. So coming in to try to save the day for your family member as a note investor, could you do that? Now, if your family member was in like a real situation where you knew, okay, this is a reliable person, and yes, they've been paying their mortgage for 15 years, but okay, something happened, maybe they got laid off, and for the past 3 months, they haven't been able to pay. But you know for a fact that, that this is someone that is reliable. Okay. Other than that, I don't mess with family. I'm just saying, I'm just, I don't mean to say it like that, but y'all know how family can be. Come on now. You don't necessarily want to mix a lot of money stuff with your family members, guys, unless you have the type of family that's like business oriented and they're serious about that, regardless of the family issues. If you don't have people like that, then just don't. I wouldn't even mess with it. Um, Prophetess Felicia said, nope, nope, nope. Family has been a no no for me. Yes, absolutely not. Okay. And if you do, even if you do decide to do that, right? Let's say you do have a very, very reliable family member and you're like, okay, I can do that with this person. Still make sure your contracts are tight. Okay. I don't care if it's my mama. We are signing a contract. Okay. But yes, if you got to foreclose on mama, I'm sorry. I'll get you a hotel, but you got to get out this house. You know what I'm saying? But at the end of the day, it's wise probably to not even do business with your family. But like I said, you know your family, all right? But if you do decide, I wouldn't recommend it. But if you decide to do that, just still do all the contracts and everything. Make sure all your contracts are still in place, and don't try to do any word of mouth stuff. Okay, don't do that. That's how you end up with squatters, and yeah, just don't do it. Don't do it. Okay, run. Pray for them. That's all you can do. Okay, but yes, great question though. Liz says, can you be a note investor for business building, like rent out? office space. Oh, you mean like you could use mortgage notes as a way to acquire property, right? I know the next step for me, once I've gotten my note portfolio to where I really want it, I'm gonna, kind of start using that strategy to acquire apartment buildings, which is, so yes, if you wanted to, once you kind of learn investing in mortgage notes, and you the same way you can get houses or residential property with mortgage notes. Some people use note investing as a way to acquire properties as well. So that could be your exit strategy if you actually want to end up with the property. Yeah, you can do that for commercial real estate as well as residential. Okay, but for us passive income investors, I don't want the property. I just want you to pay me like the bank. Okay, but you know, I do want some apartment buildings though. Um, Bonnie says patience. I noticed that businesses make a habit of buying unpaid loans, and they receive the payments on the loans. Is this the same thing? I mean, essentially, it is. You're buying unpaid loans that are mortgages. Um, but the only difference is a lot of times when the businesses are buying these loans, it's different from a mortgage. It's kind of like if you're buying car loans, the return on that may not necessarily be as high as mortgages, right? Because it's like mortgages are essential. Like people have to have a roof over their head. They don't necessarily have to have a car. You see what I'm saying? So if you're investing in like car notes, yeah, those types of loans may be lucrative, but I don't think it would be as lucrative as mortgage notes because it's like the American dream. Everybody wants a house, right? Most people are not going to be paying cash for their homes. You may have the small percentage of people who do, but for the most part, everybody's going to have a mortgage. So, your I would say your chances of getting paid on a mortgage note and getting it performing is going to be a lot higher than a lot of the other type of debt investments that are out there because people need homes. And regardless the um, of what the landscape, of the financial system is, people still need somewhere to live. Okay, so that's another just benefit of investing in mortgage notes. People are always going to need a home. Okay, but great question though. It's similar, but I do think the mortgage market is just much better, much more reliable, especially long term. And of course, somebody paying on a car note is not going to be as long as they're paying on a mortgage, right? A lot of the mortgages, what, 30 years. You're not going to get a 30-year car note. Okay, so the longevity of it as well, and also the fact that it's backed, um, by a tangible home or asset, makes it different for, you know, as far as a debt investment. Let me see, and then the next question is from Liz, and she says, "What about homes going through probate?" Mm, I mean, it could be a good candidate for this, but I don't know. I don't. That's kind of like a whole nother side of it, but I wouldn't specifically target that because it depends on how long it's in probate for all of that to be cleared up to even know who actually owns the property and all of that. Um, Yeah, I wouldn't mess with those for now. Just do the basic stuff the ones that you already know. Okay, this person is the one in the home. They're not paying. We need to foreclose. It's just much easier than trying to figure stuff out and wait for probate court and all that. Um, she said notes 25,000 to 50,000. Baby notes 20,000. uh, yeah, we needed some extra zeros there. Celeste. Yes. Stay away from doing business with your family members, guys. If you haven't learned that one yet, don't learn the hard way, please. And if I mean, like, if you want to do business with your children, that's different, right? Like if you're teaching your children know how to manage the family business, that's different. Okay, but Pookie and Ray Ray them run. Okay, don't do it. All right. All right. So Liz says, thank you for answering these questions. Says, I'm thinking outside of the box and understanding what is good or not. I'm glad you're asking those questions because it does actually make me think outside of the box. But yeah, but we've already been on here for an hour, so we're getting ready to wrap it up for tonight because I'm going to go and chill and I don't know, maybe go make me a milkshake or something, make me a homemade milkshake. But other than that, we're getting ready to wrap it up for tonight. And then, of course, if you guys are interested in learning more about investing in the mortgage notes or JV partnership, you can go to patiencedeanfinance.com. And when you click on invest in mortgage notes, it actually just tells you in detail like what you would be doing, what we would be doing. And if you're interested, then you can apply. Not everybody's going to qualify um, to work with us, right? Because obviously we'll need you to be a good fit. So that's why we have the application process. So we can kind of decide who's the best fit to work with. But if you guys are already in Generals Equipped, if you're already in my Generals Equipped program, then I already know you, you know, you may be kind of closer to already being a good fit because you're already in the program and we kind of already know you. Um, but it doesn't necessarily guarantee that when you fill out that application, you know that you will be accepted either. So, but yeah, for those of you who are interested, go to patienceandfinance.com, fill out the application if you're interested in being a JV partner and in buying your first note. No, who knows? Maybe by the end of 2026, you could be a mortgage note holder and already have some mortgage being paid to you every month for the next 20 years or however long. So I just want to take the time to get on here and answer the questions because I know some of you guys have been asking about note investing. So I wanted to take the time to do that. I'm thinking maybe I'll do this once a month where I get on here and kind of just do like the Note Ready. Y'all see Note Ready on the screen. It's going to be called Note Ready, and just kind of answer the questions as we're going along. And then also, once you guys actually start investing in notes, that'd be cool too, because once we get on here every month to answer the questions, it'll be real questions that you guys are actually going through doing, you know, and going through the actual note process. So I think that would be cool too, to have some of you on here that are in the program that are actually already investing, that are asking questions, as well as people who are interested. So I'm going to try to do this once a month with the Q&As, and it's just going to be called Note Ready Q&As with Dr. Patience Dean. Other than that, you guys have a great night, and I will see you guys on the other side of success. All right, good night, good night, good night, everyone. And don't forget to share the video, like, share, and subscribe.
Patience Dean has had multiple encounters with the supernatural, including a visit to heaven where she saw that all of us have a book, and within each book are all of the plans for our lives. She saw that most people are not living their books. So many kingdom businesses, books, and inventions are being stagnated by the enemy. In Patience's powerful encounters with God, she found the place where business and the supernatural converges. Now she wants to teach you how to overcome every strategy of the enemy, to launch that business, write that book, or get patent pending on that brilliant idea. Do you feel out of purpose, as if losing the battle against time? Are the promises of God stagnant in your life? Do you feel a tug from God to start a business? Stop fighting alone and call Patience Dean Studios now. Let us help you break through to live the abundant life that is already written for you.